So, hi, Chloe. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me today. Today's discussion is about anxiety, particularly anxiety in children. But before we go deeper into this topic, can you just briefly introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. My name is Chloe. I'm a adolescent counsellor here at Cumberland Multicultural Community Services. I've been working here for almost about 5 years, and I've previously worked at other youth-related services as well. So my job is basically supporting young people and their families when it comes to their mental and emotional well-being. So I can see young people for concerns around depressive or anxiety-like symptoms. And that can be things around, starting year 7 and making new friends, getting on top of their homework and understanding how to manage high school life. Or sometimes it can be a little bit more complicated in terms of family structures at home. So there might be, some illness, financial distress, some violence, or even, some sort of stresses, other stresses that might be going at home that our young people just need perhaps another person outside of the family home to talk about and find strategies around managing that.
Great. So, Chloe, I guess you and I have been talking a little bit about why we're having today's discussion. We're in what I would say a really extraordinary and unprecedented time with COVID.
Yes.
And you hear a lot about mental health. You hear a lot about things to do with stress and anxiety, but you hear it in the context of adults, but they don't really mention a lot about children. And children are near and dear to my heart because I work with young children, particularly children 0 to 6. I'm interested to know, firstly, what is anxiety and does it actually present differently in children? So when we talk about anxiety, is it the same as if you were talking about anxiety in an adult, or is it different?
Yeah, so I think it helps just to, I guess, firstly, as you say, work out what is and isn't anxiety. Things like, and also stress as well. I think sometimes those terms get thrown around interchangeably. So stress is a really natural evolutionary function of our brain that allows us to deal with threats as they come along. So it has both a physical and a psychological response to what is a perceived threat. So that did really well for us when, we were in caveman times, when there's a big fuzzy lion coming at us. Your stress response in your brain allowed you to direct its energy and its resources to, get out of there and run or fight or whatever that would have looked like. In modern times, that looks a little bit different. Stresses can be a very subjective and personal response. So that, Monday 10 a.m. deadline, that test we have to do next Friday, that bill we need to pay, relationship stresses, they can all look a little bit different, but our brain perceives them and responds in the same way as our, our earlier humans did when there was a, big bear coming at us. A stress response in the body is just your brain's way of dealing with a perceived threat. Does that sort of make sense?
No, it does. So where does anxiety fit into that puzzle or that puzzle?
Yeah. Okay. So stress, so the current research and thinking around stress is that stress in itself is in small doses can be sometimes a good thing because it propels and motivates our behavior. Yeah, so for an example, in the context of children, you know, the teacher telling you you've got an exam on Monday can propel and motivate us to study and do our homework. It can be a productive tool. However, obviously the literature also shows that when stress is chronic, when it's long-term, when it doesn't abate in any which way, so there's no relief in that respect. So, for example, families that might have ongoing financial distresses where there's no respite, that's where it can become harmful. So when stress moves over to an anxiety condition is where we're, from a psychological point, is where we're looking at when does that stress become harmful to our functioning of our everyday life? Is it stopping me from going to school? Is it stopping me from paying attention in class because I'm so worried with thoughts in my head? Or I'm so concerned about having another panic attack, or I'm so worried about what's happening at home? Is it stopping me from doing my job or getting to work? Is it stopping me from being the partner that I normally am? Am I noticing a disruption in the relationships that I have with mum and dad, my families, my friends? Am I more cranky than usual? That's where I guess, you know, where we look at human behavior as a spectrum. And when those stresses become harmful or impacting our everyday life, that's where perhaps we might consider stress moving into an anxiety condition.
So with anxiety, particularly in young children, so a lot of the things you're saying now may be more visible in
can be
in adults, maybe
yes.
older children, but particularly for young children,
sure.
Are there any red flags or things that parents may need to be concerned about?
Yeah, definitely. Stress and anxiety can appear slightly different in young children than they do in your teenagers or even in your adults. And what we do look for is more physical behavioral symptoms rather than necessarily their cognitive responses. And what I mean by that is that you would more likely to see young children wetting the bed, perhaps being a little bit more clingy than usual, you know, not wanting to leave mum's side, not wanting to stay over at their cousin's place, which when they would normally would. We might see them throw tantrums a little bit more often, you know, changes in their appetite in their sleep. Those are things where we might see a little bit more in young children because they may not have the cognitive or the verbal abilities to express what their fears and their stresses are at that point. Whereas we see it in older children or adults, you know, because of the developmentally where they're at, they're perhaps a bit, they've got that capacity to perhaps express, you know, I'm worried, I'm fearful, I'm stressed out.
Okay. So we mentioned COVID being a very challenging time, and I can imagine it's even more challenging for young ones. We're locked down now, we're in a lockdown, and our normal routine is just being thrown out. I'm just wondering, from a parent's point of view, is there anything proactive or anything preventative maybe they can do now just to support their child's mental health?
Yeah, definitely. Look, you know, I know even with our own caseload, we have seen stresses with our young people and with their families, and it is extraordinary times for all of us, which I think makes it more important than ever to really pay attention to our well-being and our mental health. You know, so small things can really help. So in terms of Making sure that you are getting a good night's sleep and eating healthy, nutritious food. Yeah. That doesn't mean you need to give up the pizza and the McDonald's, but it does mean, getting good nutrition into you every once in a while is really important, and more particularly getting a good night's sleep. There's really good research to show those two alone can be really good changes in terms of managing someone's mental health. Physical exercise is also a other good one. Being able to go for a walk, getting some fresh air. If you're fortunate enough to have a park, a national park, something along the lines of that around you, I would definitely advocate for, as a family, to take advantage of that. I know that can be difficult with small children, particularly in larger families. So perhaps it's a matter of, divvying up the day and taking maybe older children in the afternoon and the younger children in the morning. But definitely, physical exercise in any small form and getting in that vitamin D can be really helpful to our mental health. Other things also look around, having some structure to the day. So what I mean by that is, getting up at the same time that you normally would, getting dressed, putting on, a different pair of clothes rather than just your trackies or your PJs, doing your hair. Those things can be really good to give purpose and structure to the day. Other things that I've noticed as well, along with our clients, is perhaps also connecting with friends and family. That's really important to reach out. We do have great technology at the moment to be able to reach out to family overseas, having a good chat with them, reaching out to friends, particularly those who might live alone, grandma and grandpa, for example. It can be really good to reach out to them, not just for their own health, but for ours as well.
Yeah. And I think too, it's probably also important to listen to your child if they're worried. Even if they're quite young, they may be quite agitated or worried about things, to just listen and just let them express however, whatever they're feeling. It was interesting because my sister has two young ones, and they wanted to know why I couldn't visit them now. And my sister said something along the lines of, "Oh, if Auntie comes and she's found here, she may go to jail," because and something as little as that actually had an effect on the young one.
Yeah.
He actually woke up, as she was telling me, he woke up from sleep one night and he was saying that he didn't want me to go to jail, and he was quite agitated.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering too that what parents say now, being mindful of what they say and how they raise things. You talked about cognition, and I think in terms of how we think about things, how we phrase things is really important now, particularly with young children who may not know the difference between, what may be true and what might not be true. What do you?
No, definitely. Whether we're talking about COVID or any other sort of, bad news on the 6 o'clock news, right? Well, we need to, I guess, perhaps tailor that message about what's happening around the world, to a level that they can understand and appreciate and still feel safe. So yeah, definitely. I think there's a place to be mindful about how we go about explaining these new rules, this new world that we live in, to our children, for sure. Because, particularly quite young ones, so, 0 to 6, have a quite black and white way of seeing the world. They don't understand nuance and variations and context to things just yet. And so it's our responsibility to perhaps filter that message in some way, not sugarcoat it, but provide some context as to, we're doing this because there are germs outside and we need to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, that's true. And I think you mentioned a lot about strategies for adults too, and I think that's really important, that when parents, particularly parents, manage their own stress and manage their own, mental health, it does have
that lasting
roll-on effects for their young children. So it was really, you made some really good suggestions around what adults can do. And there was a podcast I was listening to not long ago, and he even said, take a break from the news, take a break from social media for a while, because we're constantly bombarded with all this negativity and negative news. And while we don't want to shut out reality, it's a little bit of reality in manageable doses is
definitely
good.
And look, it's a tightrope sometimes, but that negativity bias that you're referring to is definitely real. We live in a time where we have 24 hours access to news, and realistically, our brains don't need that much news all the time. We need to remind ourselves that there's little goods in the world, and it's okay to have a laugh every once in a while. And so I would definitely recommend regulating perhaps how much news you're taking, whether that be on social media or on the TV, for both you and your family, definitely. As you said, it's still important to be informed, because of course these regulations are changing relatively frequently, in terms of what we can and can't do. But there's definitely no need to be tuned into it 24 hours of the day, because as you say, it does have that roll-on effect. Children are like sponges. We definitely pick up on other people's anxious demeanor, and that irritability, that agitation. And so it's always important to, as they say, when you get on a plane, you've got to put your mask on first, and then help others. So it's really important that parents take care of themselves and manage their anxiety. And if that's, perhaps not tuning into the news as frequently, so that they're able to then manage their family's distress as well, definitely.
Yeah. So today's talk is by no means meant to replace medical advice. But if parents do have concerns about their child, particularly their child's mental well-being, what supports are available out there for parents and particularly for children?
Yeah, definitely. If you have any concerns about your children, first and foremost, it's always helpful to just talk to them about what's going on. Creating a safe space for them to talk about their feelings without judgment, without a sort of, I guess, a critical lens of how they're feeling is really important, so that they feel comfortable, so that they get the cues that it's okay to talk about, I'm scared, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. Because sometimes, inadvertently, not consciously, but sometimes we do shut down conversations with our kids, just because, we've got 500 other things that are going on and I need to get dinner on, or whatever that is. So it's always important to find some moments in the day and provide a platform to be able to talk to your kid about how they're faring. Beyond that, if you do have concerns, I do recommend talking to your GP and talking about a possible referral to go see a counsellor. There are counsellors trained specifically for working with young children, and that can work with them at their developmental level. And that can be a really good way for children to, I guess, explore and unpack what it is they're feeling. Because as I said before, they may not know how to articulate that as such. And counselling for them might be really helpful as a way of understanding what it is going for them. So for example, I've had many instances where, just providing kids with education about, that really yucky butterfly feeling I get in my stomach sometimes is a manifestation of my anxiety, and just giving them that information is transformative, because they can understand their own body and they can understand their triggers, and then they can put strategies around that. So yeah, like as I said, a referral to a GP for a counsellor might be a really good start, particularly now in light of COVID. Children have access to, I think it's almost 20 sessions. I'd probably need to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's about 20 sessions that have been extended to. So that's all covered under Medicare. So it's a really great tool for a lot of families to make use of.
Great. And I think you'll be sharing some links or information with us today that I'll include in the description box below. So Chloe, is there one last message or key message you'd like to leave parents with today?
Yeah, I think parents today managing work and kids in the one household, they're doing a fantastic job of just managing, and so I think probably the one message I'd want to say is, be kind to yourself. There's no rule book on how to manage this, and everyone's faring a little bit different. So I think it's important, whether you're a parent or whether you're a small child, to just be kind to yourself and take it day by day. We have some good days and we have some bad days. And yeah, like I said, it's just important to reach out to people, take care of yourself, and that's probably the best that we can do, to just be kind to how you're faring that day.
Yeah, that's really beautiful advice. Absolutely. I think self-compassion and also
definitely,
is so important, not only now but all the time.
For sure.
Thank you, Chloe. I really appreciate your time again. Really some very valuable information. Thank you.
No problem.
Stay safe.
Worries. You too. Take care.
Bye.